I am somebody. I am somebody. I am God's child. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. All right. Let me thank Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push for this honor this morning. It means so much to me because, as stated, I started at 12 years old in Operation Breadbasket. And to be honored by those that I was planted in their soil means a lot. In that spirit, yesterday was my friend and brother Cliff Kelly's last show, and as the daily person, and on Tuesdays, Jonathan Jackson used to give his professorial lectures. So I want Jonathan now to go on my national show every Tuesday and keep doing that. Will you do that? Every Tuesday. Keeping it real with Jonathan and Al. Before I say what I want to say, I want to deal with two local things. When Reverend Jackson called and told me, Al, on the day we're honoring you, we're also going to appeal to both mayoral candidates to sign this pledge. One of the things that came to mind is I've watched him for the last 50 some odd years bring people together. And it has been his teaching of us and mentoring of us and those of us that came under him as he did Dr. King. And I thought about how there was a dispute before involving two women. They both claimed to be the mother of the same child. And they brought the women before Solomon. And they asked Solomon to decide who the mother was. And they both laid out their case. They made a good case. And they made a good plea. And Solomon, in his wisdom, said, well, I tell you what, I really can't decide. I'm not going to endorse either one of you. I'll split the baby in half. And one of the women said, that's fine. The other one said, no, don't hurt the baby. I'd rather take the pain of not having my child than my child not losing his life. The Solomonic wisdom of Reverend Jackson was to say to these two women, one of whom will be the mayor come Wednesday morning, that the journey that we've traveled from Harold Washington to now, through the years of dailies and dailies, that journey is more important than somebody's career and somebody's self-aggrandizement. You are not worthy of being mayor if you won't spare the babies in Chicago. So I'm glad both of them came and signed the pledge. Somebody asked me, Reverend Al, are you here to endorse somebody? No, I'm here as a witness to the signatures of the pledge. I'm just a witness to what Reverend Jackson put together, because I don't care who you like, who you don't like, what name you call. They closed 50 schools on your children here. You got mass incarceration here. You have record gun violence here. While you choosing which woman you like, you ought to choose the children that are not being educated and not being facilitated, and the guns in the community. It's time to raise our sights above petty politics and turn this city back around. That's what got us here now. Arguing about a generation or two ago about whether you liked Sawyer or Evans. And we got in such a battle between Sawyer and Evans, you'd ended up with Daly. People can capitalize off your confusion. That's why the children of Israel took 40 years to go from the Red Sea to the Promised Land. It didn't take that long, but they were too busy in the wilderness taking shots at each other, being petty, being jealous, being envious. Who had the biggest gold ring? Who had the biggest gold calf? We need to grow up and show out on Tuesday and turn this city around. The other is this whole prosecutorial decision by Kim Foxx. I've spent most of my life fighting in criminal justice. Prosecutors have prosecutorial decisions that they can make. We can agree or disagree, but that is their power. And you have the right to question it or the right to go along with it. But when people that never question anything else start questioning things, then we have a right to question the questioners. Police got come out through New York, so I found it strange that the mayor that didn't hold a national press conference when the Laquan McDonald's tapes weren't released. I find it strange a police chief that didn't say a word when they let an election go by and couldn't find the tapes. But all of a sudden, you have selective outrage and you start attacking Ms. Foxx. This is of national concern. We are not going to sit by and allow her to be questioned when you didn't question Van Dyke, you didn't question the tape, you didn't question anything else. Then they're going to pick on, family is family. They start asking, well, Smollett, and if Smollett's wrong, he ought to be dealt with. If he's right, he ought to be confirmed. I'm not getting in that. But then they're going to question my little brother, Jonathan, on community service. That's what we do. We do community service. That's why this house was built. This house was not built for those that have pristine backgrounds. This house was not built for those that pass through the corridors of Ivy League schools, even if they got a little help, we finding out from their parents. This Dr. King workshop was to come unto me, all ye that labor, you that nobody else wants, you that every other door is shut. That's why there's a workshop here. Don't ask why Jesse came here. Millions of Jessies have come through the years. That's why we here. That's what we do. People get confused. Dr. King didn't come to Chicago in '66 and stay on the Gold Coast. He went to Hamlin. Y'all got us confused. There's a difference between those that are social workers and social climbers and those that are social justice freedom fighters. Social climbers trying to get as high as they go until they crash and they butt hit the ground. We the ones on the ground, when they butt hit, we try to put them back together again. Negro Humpty Dumpties. Climb real high. Can't make the rally, climb real high. Don't know why we come out on Saturday mornings, climb real high. Don't know why Jesse doing what he doing, ain't he getting old to climb real high. Why don't Jonathan shut up, climb real high? What Al talking about? But when you fall, we the only ones can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, because we the ones that made you hump in the first place. My challenge to you today is that when Chicago votes on Tuesday, whatever the result, it'll be the first time in decades that you will have a black mayor. Not only a black mayor, but a black female mayor. Let's go back to '83. Harold Washington was not elected because there was some meeting of the establishment downtown. Harold Washington was a result of a movement that many, including those in this room, and Lou Palmer and others, decided to close down the Chicago Fest. Reverend Jackson was on VON one night and somebody said, let's boycott. And it grew out of that boycott. He got Stevie Wonder not to come. There were picket lines. There was a movement. Some folk that wasn't even talking to each other was part of the movement. Out of that movement came the Harold Washington candidacy. And Harold said, if y'all do these three things, I'll run. Register these amount of voters, raise this amount of money, build a broader coalition. He did those three requirements out of a movement. The reason why we have taken this long to get back here is because we forgot how we got here in the first place. You've been playing clubhouse politics. Clubhouse politics never got you a black mayor. It's always been a movement. That movement in '83 went into '84 with Run Jesse Run, went into '88 with Our Time Is Coming, Keep Hope Alive, all the way into '08 Obama. It's a movement. And you that are the fruit of the movement have turned on the root of the movement, which why your fruit is tarnished on the branch. Don't forget, let me tell you something, there's a birthright in movement. All through the Bible, they talk about birthrights. David's kids tried to steal birthrights. The whole story with Isaac and Esau tried to steal birthrights. They tried to take from you which is yours. They tried to take from you what God gave you by your own spiritual development. Sometimes it ain't bloodline. It's anointing, not appointing. You have gone against your birthright by getting funded and by getting underwritten and by cutting deals with people that were not part of the tradition and trajectory that God gave us. If you own your birthright, God promised that even in the darkest night, I'll raise a son. God promised that I'll make a way out of no way. God promised, even if you're not on the budget, I'll provide all your needs. God promised that I'll open doors that no one can open and shut doors that no one can shut. God promised. But if you get out of the avenue of God, then you end up in your own confusion. I hope as we go vote Tuesday, I hope as we stand with Miss Fox, that we realize that there was no accident, that Dr. King came through Chicago on his way to Memphis and built a movement here that's still going. And sometimes you help people that turn around and scorn you, but we don't fight for credit, we fight for progress. We don't fight for plaques and trophies. We fight so that we can go rest one day knowing that we ran our lap and did what we were supposed to do. It's time for those that are sellouts to get back. You done had your sellout season for 40 years. It's time to go on to the promised land now. It's time to feed the hungry. It's time to clothe the naked. It's time to rebuild these schools. Sellout season is over. It's time to stand up and claim our birthright in Chicago. When I was 12, growing up in New York, born and raised in Brooklyn, I kept wanting to go to rallies. It was the very late 60s. My mother was afraid that I'd leave the church. So she said to my bishop, she said, this boy keep wanting to go to all these little meetings. New York was a Malcolm town. Didn't like Dr. King in New York. Bishop Washington said, I'm gonna bring him to Dr. Jones. They are some ministers with Dr. King. Their movement, they'll keep him in the movement, but keep him in church. She brought me to Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Jones, and I've been in the movement ever since. The reason that our movement is a little different is because it is unapologetically God-based and church-based. That's why some folk can't work with us, because we are on FM, they on AM. We got a different frequency. They are looking for what is natural and what makes career sense. We listen to an inner power that don't make sense. Faith is not what you can figure out. Faith is not what you can calculate. Faith is not what you can Google up the answer. Faith is when you go to Syria and get hostages that diplomats couldn't get. Faith is when you march even if you don't know if you're going to be able to get the kids out of Decatur. Faith is when you stand up for murder victims even against the police force. Faith is not calculation. Faith is knowing that God will make a way if I trust him. We come as faith warriors. Faith is when you got all your friends turn on you, but you still know you got to go if you got to go by yourself. Faith is when you got a pile of bills and no money, but you say, God will provide all I need. Faith is when you got a bad doctor's assessment, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me now. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting not in fifth floor downtown, trusting in his holy word. He never failed me yet. From the outhouse to the White House, he brought us a mighty long way. God is still on the throne. And if my mama was here, I'd tell her I never left the church, because I stayed under Reverend and I stayed under Reverend Jones, and I understood that our strength wasn't from the outside, but our strength was in the inside. And I know that God will make a way. I don't care how much Trump act up, there is a God that makes the final decision. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I'm his own. He been food when I was hungry. He been watered when I was thirsty. He's my rock, my sword and shield, my will, my will, my will. In the middle of the wheel, he's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He woke me up this morning, started me on my way. Yes, 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 yes. You know, Reverend, in my life, I've had to cry sometimes. In my life, I sometime. I've been lied on, cheated, talked about. I've been mistreated. I've been up. I've been knocked down. I've been leveled to the ground. I've been stabbed. I've been prosecuted. But through it all, through it all, through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Through